It's time to walk away from those talking heads on your TV. Turn off that reality garbage that's poisoning your brains. Read in between the lines and look for something deeper. Because I'm Arif Ali, and it's time to disconnect. And the rib that the Lord God had taken from the man, he made into a woman and brought her to the man. This has got to be one of the quotes that I hate the most. For all of you women out there, every single time you read this quote, how does that make you feel? How does it make you feel to know that the Bible that you may or may not read tells you that your worth belongs in the rib of a man? Let's look at it from a scientific point of view. Women give birth. Men plant the seed to enable women to give birth. So if we're saying that woman was made from the rib of a man, are we implying that man gave birth to women? If that's the case, why can't men still give birth today? To me, it's an illogical argument, and it's a great way to kickstart this episode of Disconnect. Since human beings have put pen to paper, there's been a recurring theme that has developed over centuries, or over millennia, up until the point that we are at today. And that is that women throughout history seem to be marginalized and demonized. You could attribute this to a few things. You could attribute this to our society being majority of the time patriarchal, dominated by men, whether it be in government, whether it be in religion. But men do seem and have seemed to dominate the landscape of our society pretty much from the time that we have learned to read and write as human beings. And over this period of time, over this millennia, men have created horrible atrocities against women. Still do today. When you think of the name Cleopatra, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? I would assume that you would think that she was a queen. I would assume that you would think that she was a very powerful queen, a very powerful pharaoh that had a lot of pull. But most of the time, what you think of is an over-sexualized portrait of a woman with an insatiable appetite for sex. Why is that the case? When you think of King Tutankhamun, you don't think that. But when you think of Cleopatra, that's what comes to your mind? Mary Magdalene is another example. In the Bible, she's been written in as a prostitute. But there are many, many historical references that point to her being Jesus' love interest and maybe even Jesus' wife. Now, you might be rolling your eyes and thinking, man, this guy's gone off the deep end. Little cuckoo. He's sipping on that juice over there. But why is it so hard to believe? Why is it so hard to believe that men have gone out of their way to paint women in this light? When you think of the story of Adam and Eve, Adam wasn't corrupted until Eve came along, and she made him eat the forbidden fruit. This may just be a small detail in these stories, but the point that they make is that the idea of women is conniving, manipulative, sleazy, sexy, do whatever it takes to kind of get a man to do what they want. And this is a big problem in society today as well. Look at some of these periods of time. Look at some of these things that we've done over history to one another, mainly man to women, and tell me if what I'm saying is incorrect. Over 3 centuries throughout the world, there were witch hunts taking place from continent to continent and continent. The idea of it was that men were hunting down women that they thought were witches and slaughtering them. And the rationale was that they did something to deserve this. And if they were innocent, God wouldn't let them be killed. So they would tie rocks to the feet of women, throw them into a river and said, hey, we'll come back to see you in the morning. If you're dead, you're a witch. But if you lived, you're innocent. Tell me, how many of those women do you think survived burial by drowning? I would say a very small percentage. That's just one of the many ways that they murdered and slaughtered these women by the thousands. Not by the hundreds, not by the dozens, by the thousands. Rough estimates say around 20,000. Generous estimates say about 50,000. There's no real right number because records weren't really kept about which women were killed, how many women were killed without spectators watching, how many men decided that their wives were witches and killed them themselves. So in reality, this number could be a lot higher. You may think that's the past. You may think that's ancient history. That's buried. That's water under the bridge. We shouldn't bring that up anymore. But think about it for a second. These same themes continue today. We are far from where we need to be. And as men, it is our responsibility to uphold our end of the bargain. Gone are the days of men needing to be the protector and the provider and the caretaker. For all of you men out there that know a strong woman, you know for damn sure she does not need you to protect her. But what she does need is you to acknowledge her strength, to provide support for her strength, to love her and care for her as a strong woman, as opposed to this delicate thing that might break if you're not around. Because trust me, that's not the case. Today's society is blatantly different from those times. Different in so many ways. The days of men having to leave the home to earn their keep and bring home food for their families while the women stayed at home and cared for the children and cooked the meals and kept the house clean. That's ancient history. That may take place in some households, but generally, that idea of a functioning home, in that sense, is gone. More women today are in the workplace than ever before. More women today are the majority bread owners than ever before. And with this shift in this tide, it's almost stripped the masculinity away from men. For the longest time, generationally, men have gotten their worth and their well-being from being the provider and the caretaker and the man. Today's day and age, men have to redefine what masculinity means. And the term man has almost come to a place where we shouldn't be throwing it around so loosely, because there aren't a lot of men out there that are being men. You should have to earn that title. If you don't earn that title, you're really not a man. You're just an accompaniment to your woman. And that sounds harsh, but the men that I see these days aren't really men. If you don't work for your living, if you don't come home and work to take care of your children and work to keep your wife happy and work to keep your house in check, you're really not a man. If all you do is go to work and come home and your feet go up and the rest of the responsibility is off your shoulders, that's not really a man anymore. It takes more than that. And the reason I say this is because women have been doing it for millennia. They've been working in the home, working outside the home, cooking the meals, cleaning the homes, raising the children, while men have kind of gotten an easy ride. And majority of it is because of our physical strength and an almost ridiculous sense of natural intimidation that is just built into a man and woman relationship. Think about it like this. At this point in society right now, there's a higher percentage of women that are raped than are getting married. If that doesn't make you shake your head and think, what the fuck is going on with society, then you got some serious problems. Let me say it again. The percentage of women that are raped is higher than the percentage of women that get married. 1 out of every 17 women in Canada will be raped once in their life. 1 out of every 3 women in the United States will be raped once in their life. The sad part is, majority of these rapes happen in the victim's home. 80% of the time, it happens in the victim's home. 70% of the time, the victims know their abuser. The worst part of it is, 60% of the time, cases of rape and sexual assaults are not even reported. So that means that these numbers could be a lot higher. And as men, we're really doing women an injustice, because when you think of the average age of the victims, they range from 15 to 24. 15 is a child. If our society is so decrepit that a 15-year-old child can be raped, we are far removed from help. I think the saddest statistic out of all of these is that 97% of rapists will never even spend 1 day in jail. So that means that these crimes are creating victims while perpetrators run free. This is not selling a dime bag of weed. This is not selling a trunk of cocaine. This is rape. You are taking away the most sacred thing that a woman has, whether or not she's a virgin, you are taking away something that is more sacred to her in most cases than life is. And yet 97% of the time, the abusers walk like nothing happened. The statistics that I'm giving you are North American statistics. A lot of the time when we think of rape and sexual assault and abuse against women, we think of third world countries, places like Afghanistan where women get beaten, places like India where women get gang raped. But think about the numbers again for a second. There are more women being raped than getting married. I'm going to repeat this until you have it engraved into your brain, because you need to understand the severity of that. Another statistic to go along with that is that there are more single mothers raising children than there are dual parent households raising children. Now, this leads me to a much larger point. Right now in society, there are a whole trove of young adults that are being raised by single mothers. When a boy is raised in a house with just his mom, one of the things that he loses is the ability to learn how to be a man. And a woman can teach a growing boy so much about what it is to be a good man. But if there's not that role model to look at, to respect, and to look up to as that's the kind of man that I want to be, in that boy's mind, the idea of a good man is a fairy tale. It's something that he has to see on TV to acknowledge. It's something that he has to maybe catch as a mentor or a teacher or somebody that he sees in the streets that he recognizes and respects. Those role models may be giving him good characteristics or bad characteristics. But the bottom line is they are not coming from somebody that matters, or that main person that matters, which should be that boy's father. And what ends up happening to these kids? They grow up acting like men from the time that they're boys. A boy is not a man. Never can be. And they act out the way they think men act out. There's a story right now in New York City about a gang of boys that really need to be beat down severely, that are walking the streets and knocking people out. They're literally walking up to complete strangers, winding up, trying to one punch knock them out. And, back in the day, kids used to do stupid stuff, pick on each other, bully each other, whatever it is. But I don't ever remember a society where kids were so cold and callous, so pathetic, that one of these videos showed a group of these idiots walking the streets and punching out a woman that was pushing a baby stroller. There's no more empathy and respect, even for a child's life, where they would lay out the child's mother in front of the child. We used to think that hitting a woman was taboo, like, oh my God, I can't hit a woman, that's not going to happen. But now, through media and so many different avenues, we see so much of this stuff that it's almost become accepted that women are a target of abuse. Oh yeah, okay, it's no big deal. That's just the way society is. Just the other day in BC, in this city, Vancouver, that I love and I've grown up in, there was a same-sex couple on the bus, two women, that were heading to their destination, and they exchanged in some PDA, had a kiss. Some shithead on the bus saw this, grown man, by the way, in his 40s, grown man, sees these two women get off the bus, follows them off the bus, stalks them for a few blocks, catches them off guard, and punches the woman in the face, giving her a bloody nose. Thankfully, there were spectators around that chased him away, but consider that act of violence. One meaningful act of violence. This person went out of his way to follow two women off the bus and punch a woman square in the mouth. Not worried about the repercussions, not worried about going to jail, not worried about any of that. Didn't even think twice, didn't even flinch, and decided he wanted to exact his version of violence upon this woman. How can a man be so confident, first of all, that he's going to do this and get away with it in the age of cell phones? How would he expect this to go unnoticed? There were buses on the camera that saw him in plain as day getting off the bus following them. I'm sure there's somebody out there that has a copy of the video of him punching the woman in the face. How did he expect to get away with this? You know what the sad part is? He didn't expect to get away with it. What he did expect was a slap on the wrist. That, yeah, okay, I'll get arrested. They'll slap me and they'll say, don't do it again, and I'll be out. How pathetic is this? People spend years in jail for selling pot. And this guy can walk the streets causing physical harm on a woman and nothing happens. Maybe they'll set an example. Maybe they'll put him in jail for a little while. But is that really enough? Will that deter violence against women? There are so many passages throughout religious books that give women significant reverence and shine a spotlight on women. In the Quran, for example, it says, the doorway to heaven is at a mother's feet, which in essence basically means that children should do whatever it takes to keep their mothers happy. But in the same faith, men barricade their women in homes, cover them from head to toe so that only their eyes can show, and they do it in the same name of religion. How can the same book tell two completely different stories? Why are there so many indications of women corrupting man in these books? I'm sorry, I've met a lot of men in my life, and men are corrupt as fuck. They don't really need a woman to make them corrupt. I think what we do need, though, is a societal shift. We've been patriarchal for so long, and where has it gotten us? A warming planet, never-ending wars, financial ruin, unemployment everywhere, suicide rates skyrocketing. The earth is on the brink of disaster. And whether we like it or not, men, we are the cause. Women have never been given the right to make these decisions on our behalf. We have decided that we are going to be the ones that make these decisions for the rest of the planet and let them deal with it. It's time for a shift. In a world that we have such strong and powerful women like a Malala Yousafzai, or an Oprah Winfrey, or a Michelle Obama, or a Amina Matthews, or a woman like my mom or my wife. In a world that's populated with such powerful and amazing women, men still don't have the courage to encourage their leadership. And if we've gotten it wrong for so long, isn't it time for a changing of the guard? Every single day I read stories in the news about a different case of a woman that was beat in her home by her husband or a boyfriend or an ex-boyfriend or whatever it may be, and they had a restraining order in place and nothing happened and they were still allowed to get beat and the cops did nothing about it and she's left to suffer as a victim. And nothing's done about it. In India, women are being brutalized with acid in the face. Thousands of women have been abused by husbands that felt they were wronged, boyfriends that felt they were wronged, in-laws that felt they were wronged, and their revenge is acid in the face. No repercussions, no justice. Where do we stand as men in all this? Like I mentioned earlier, it is our responsibility now to redefine the things that make us masculine and provide us with worth. We need to be the men that we want to see our daughters with. If you don't have a daughter, I'm sorry, but you're missing out. But empathize with that thought. Be the man that you want your daughter to grow up and marry. Be that example. Be the example that you want your son to grow up and be like. Don't let your son look at you or your daughter look at you as they get older as a failure of a man. Don't let them look at you and say, I wish I had a different dad. I wish my dad wasn't like that. I wish my dad didn't act like that. Don't be that man, because you are raising the next generation of men and women that are going to be carrying the mantle for future generations. And if you haven't done right by them, they will not do right by their kids. And the cycle will continue this way. It's so embedded within our culture that this kind of abuse and hatred against women has become commonplace. And one of the things that's caused this, or at least promoted the cause, is athletes and celebrities' violence against women. It happens all the time. Athlete goes to a club, finds a groupie, gets drunk, she gets drunk, she ends up raped, and the next day in the press, every single story that talks about the incident will make the athlete seem like the victim. Like, oh, some groupie took advantage of him. Oh, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Oh, they were both drunk. And throughout the whole process, the woman is the one that gets ostracized. Now, don't get me wrong. I know there are groupies out there that are preying on these athletes, that are preying on these celebrities, and just waiting for that right moment just to get them drunk enough that maybe I can have this guy's baby. I know that's out there. But that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about an incident similar to Ben Roethlisberger, the rapist douchebag, that repeatedly told this girl that he was going to have her. And despite her friends trying to get involved and pulling her away, this girl ended up being raped. Did Ben spend any time in jail? Hell no. But Michael Vick did for hurting a dog. Are we saying we place more value on a dog's life than a woman's life? Numerous times, numerous stories. I can think of at least another dozen off my head where a girl has been in a situation with an athlete, claims she was raped, and immediately she is painted as the culprit in the situation, not the victim. The behaviors become so commonplace that police don't even take the victim seriously. Just yesterday in New Mexico, a woman was pulled over by the police, taken into custody for supposedly having drugs on her. They took her to the detention center where she was going to be held, and they did a full strip search on her. After the strip search, they supposedly found a bag of drugs that she had tucked, and instead of following procedure and having the drugs removed so that they could figure out what it was, they sprayed her vagina with mace. Repeatedly sprayed her vagina with mace. This is the law enforcement. These are the cops. And instead of using their due diligence and handling it like a crime, they abused her further. We've become that culture where we glamorize the pimp but demonize the hoe. We want to celebrate the things that appeal to us specifically, while we are all the products of our mothers. Whether you like it or not, whether you get along with your mother or not, you are and will always be the product of your mother. Your dad donated the DNA, your mom did the rest. One of the greatest lines of all time in hip-hop came from Tupac, where he talks about, and since we all came from a woman, got a name from a woman, and a game from a woman, I wonder why we take from a woman, why we rape our women, do we hate our women? And it makes you think, do we hate our women? Are we at that place in society where we have lost so much of what makes us men that we are turning on those women that make us men? You know, jobs aren't the same. People can't get the same kind of jobs they used to get. Men can't really earn the same kind of money that they used to earn without an education. You can't just walk into a place like you could in the early 90s or 80s and, you know, make $40,000, $50,000 a year without an education. Those days are gone, long gone. It takes ingenuity and innovation to be successful in this world. This world, the blocks are stacked against the common man. Now, don't play yourself like a victim, men. For everybody out there listening, I want to be very, very clear on who this is directed towards. If you are a woman that has a husband and children, and you are that woman that doesn't like to clean, that doesn't like to cook, that doesn't want to work, and just wants to sit on your ass all day and do nothing, this is not for you. If you are that man that goes to work, comes home, and does nothing in the home, doesn't help in the cooking or the cleaning or in the raising of the children, this is not for you. But if you are that man that comes home from work after a hard day of busting your ass and busts your ass at home and cooks and helps clean and helps raise your children and be a father figure in their life, this is for you. And for the women out there, if you do what you can and bust your ass at the workplace and come home and take care of your family and take care of your kids and cook and clean, this is for you. And for the men out there that have that woman in your life, treat her like the queen that she is. Make her feel like she is the most important thing to you. For you women out there that have a good man, Treat him like the king that he is. Make him feel like the man. Only a real woman can make a man feel like the man. But only a real man can make a real woman feel like she's deserved. And throughout our relationships, we're gonna make mistakes. As men, we're gonna make mistakes. As women, we're gonna make mistakes towards each other. We're gonna get angry. We're gonna fight. We're gonna yell. We're gonna scream. We're gonna hate each other. That is our nature as human beings in this journey that we have called life. But there are certain things that we cannot do and cannot afford to do. We cannot alienate each other. We cannot leave each other high and dry when we need each other the most. Women need us just as much as we need them. The difference is the way they need us has changed. Like I said before, they don't need someone to protect them or care for them or provide for them. Women can do that themselves. Just ask my wife. But what they do need is a man that will be by her side through it all. Good, bad, and ugly. Whether or not she makes more money than you. Whether or not she has a better job than you. Whether or not she looks better than you is besides the point. You get with the woman for the reasons why you love her. And don't forget that over a period of time in your relationship. And for all you men out there that feel as if a woman is there for the taking, you got it all wrong. If the only thing you see when you see a woman is what she's going to look like in your bed, you got it all wrong. All you little fake ass players and hustlers that think you got game and want to put another notch on your belt, a day will come where that notch on your belt is going to be your daughter on the notch of some other douchebag's belt. And what's that going to do to you? For all you players out there that think you're G's and think you got it all and think you're a pimp and yo, I got swag and all this and that, what's going to happen when you have a precious little girl to live for and to raise and to be a father to? And she runs in to someone that's just like you. Same intentions as you, wants another notch in his belt, and sees your daughter as the prime victim. Then what happens? She ends up with some douchebag like you and gets her heart broken. And then what? Are you going to sit there and cry with her? Or are you going to say, I'm going to kill that fool? You know what? Too bad, so sad. What goes around, comes around. And if you can't put it down like a real man in real life, get ready for a rude awakening. For all my real men out there, stand up. Walk with your heads held high. We need more of you. Because there's millions of women out there that really don't care. They don't really need a man to justify who they are. But I can tell you from experience, we definitely need women to justify. Because nothing brings out the man in somebody like a real woman does. Disconnect, y'all. Peace. Peace. Peace.